sir. You're about to see something really special.
Really thought this part of my life was behind me. Frenzy disappeared with the drinking 3 years ago. Why now? This makes no sense, and I'm right on the verge of freaking out. Back from your life. These people can be animals. What you burn. Thingy's out. Some bitter things you should never. Good cheese.
Remember, cosplay's not consent.
So here's to me. Congratulations, me. Yay, me. This would all be so much easier if I was hammered. Hammered. Right.
You can take away the anger, but you leave behind the pain. It's your soul.
New ventures are always scary. Blah, blah, blah. Something positive and uplifting.
Don't miss our new film, The Love Song of William H. Shaw, coming soon to a streaming service near you. Hey everyone, this is Cliff from Talking Pondo. Just wanted to give you a quick heads up about spoilers on the show. We do talk about the films in a certain amount of detail, so you may want to watch the film first and then come back if you're not a fan of spoilers. Also, every now and then there's a little bit of adult language, so we wanted to give you fair warning on that. We hope you enjoy the episode, and we really appreciate you listening. Welcome to Season 2 of Making Pondo and Talking Pondo. Talking Pondo is a podcast where Cliff and Marty give each other a film to watch and talk about them in detail. Some episodes will include a special guest. Making Pondo is a podcast where Cliff and Marty talk to people they have worked with and discuss their experiences on set. All right, Marty, looks like we are back again, sir.
Yeah. Episode 60 overall. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, not bad. Not bad at all.
Wow.
Just keep putting them out every week. It's crazy.
Yeah, it starts to add up, doesn't it? It's the consistency. You can always count on us to be here. It's wild.
We have no lives, so that's why you can count on us.
Now you're just quoting The Love Song of William H. Shaw, streaming now on Amazon Prime.
Streaming now on Amazon Prime and on Hoopla. So if you have a public library card, you can watch our film for free on Hoopla. Not only can you watch that one, you can watch the two that preceded it for free on Hoopla.
Writing Frenzy and Revenge of Zoe.
For free on Hoopla.
For free. And this is 2025, you're hearing this, and they should be on there for quite some time. So
yes. HOOPLA. Hoopla.
Yeah.
For free. Have I emphasized that enough? I think I have, right?
Thanks to our good friends at Bayview Entertainment.
Thank you, Bayview Entertainment. We love you very much. We hope to do a few things with you in the future. We have some ideas and some plans coming about, hopefully.
Stay tuned.
We are super excited. Now, you've probably heard the trailer, the audio trailer at the beginning of this episode.
I did hear that.
Yeah. So you know that's what we're talking about, right? If you want to hear or see that, what you just heard, Hoopla.
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 You can go watch it right now and then come back to the pod. We'll be here waiting for you.
We'll be here waiting on you. It's not a problem. Hoopla. Oh, here's the great thing about Hoopla. There's no ads. There's no ads on Hoopla, guys. All you need is an active library card.
That makes sense because this is the subscription-based window.
Hoopla.
But this is episode 24, which is kind of interesting because we only
Season 2, episode 24.
We only do 36 episodes a season, so we're trucking along here.
We're getting. This is the end of the 2/3. We're into the last third after this.
And so, last week, for you listening anyway, we were talking to Ryan, and then it got me thinking about, one of the choices for today. We watched Before Sunset, and then we watched 1917. And I'm going to say, let's start with Before Sunset. It was the shorter movie. It's 80 minutes.
That was surprisingly, mercifully short, in my opinion.
It's I think he learned a little bit from the previous one as far as that pacing. But
Yeah.
what is Before Sunset?
Okay, so Before Sunset is the second movie in a trilogy by Richard Linklater. Previously on this podcast, we had reviewed Before Sunrise, right?
Yeah, the first
one. So, and Before Sunrise is about two people who meet on a train in Europe, and they spend the night together. Basically, by sunset, they have to depart and go their separate ways. Or by sunrise. I'm sorry. So the next movie in this installment is Before Sunset. Again, starring Julie Delpy, Ethan Hawke, directed and written by Richard Linklater. Surprisingly, Julie Delpy and Ethan Hawke get writing credits on this. So
yeah, you can tell they added more to their.
It makes sense.
This go around.
Yeah. So the log line is 9 years after Jesse and Celine first meet, they encounter each other again on the French leg of Jesse's book tour. And the storyline is early 30-something American Jesse Wallace is at a Paris bookstore, the last stop on a tour to promote his best-selling book, This Time. Although he is vague to reporters about the source material for the book, it is about his chance encounter 9 years earlier on June 15th through the 16th, 1994, with a Parisienne named Celine, and the memorable and romantic day and evening they spent together in Vienna. At the end of their encounter at the Vienna train station, which is also how the book ends, they, not providing contact information to each other, vow to meet again 6 months later in exactly that same spot. As the media scrum at the bookstore nears its conclusion, Jesse spots Celine in the crowd, she who only found out about the book when she earlier saw his photograph promoting this public appearance. Much like their previous encounter, Jesse and Celine, who is now an environmental activist, decide to spend time together until he is supposed to catch his flight back to New York, this time only being about an hour. Beyond the issue of the 6-month meeting, what has happened in their lives in the intervening 9 years, and their current lives, they once again talk about their philosophies of love, life, and this time with the knowledge of their day together and how it shaped what's happened to them. That's a long storyline. But yeah, that's basically it. I think that's a pretty good one.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sitting there thinking right from the beginning, even though I've seen this a couple times before, you immediately go, well, he ain't making that flight. He ain't getting back in time, because it's always, no, we got a little bit more time. Let's go over here. I don't want to stop. Let's keep going, And then, of course, spoiler, they end up all the way back to her place to where she's been living in he's been living in her head rent-free and vice versa for like the last 9 years. I mean, she wrote a damn song about him. He wrote a book about her. I think it's kind of funny that he actually did show back up 6 months later, and then she was horribly embarrassed to find out that he had. And
yeah, that was the first part of the movie, because in the beginning he's like, oh, I didn't go either.
Yeah,
And she's like, oh, thank God, because my grandma died, and there's no way I could have made it, and I would have been. And my grandma died. It's like the worst fucking excuse. Like, I get it. It just sounds, as a previous employer of people, it just sounds like the lamest of all excuses. Right. But I get it. It just seems like he could have come up with something else. But yeah, so she couldn't make it, and he says, oh, it's good because I couldn't either. And then later on in the movie, about 40 minutes in, he's like, okay, I was there. And she's like, oh, no, that's about 20 minutes in the movie. He's like, yeah, I was there. And she's like, oh, shit, and kind of feels bad, but she's also kind of laughing like, oh, my goodness. Well, the look on your face. I'm so sorry,
In ways I like the first one more, but in ways I like the second one more. And one of the ways I like the second one more is I can relate a little bit more to the slightly older characters. They're a little, older, worse for the wear, a little more bitter and cynical, reflecting back on how they were all, young and full of hope, just the 9 years earlier. So it's kind of interesting the back and forth with that. And I think the pacing seemed a little more precise. Like, since he only had an hour, it kind of makes it speed by a little quicker.
I will say the pacing's better, much better. It's so funny. I was talking with the wife about this, and I said, it's like I said to the first movie, you can call it Walk and Talk, the movie part 2,
Mm-hmm.
And she goes, well, you could say that about 1917. And I was like,
Yeah, they are similar in that way.
touche. Okay. To a certain extent, that's true in 1917.
What a funny pairing.
However, this is like nothing but two-shot walking, talking, throughout the whole fucking movie.
Well, there's some sitting and talking.
There is some sitting and talking. There is definitely some sitting and talking. But it's, again, like I said, what you could call it Walk and Talk the Movie Part 2. But it's one of the things early on, like, so they're in this bookstore. She shows up and he's like, hey, and you could tell he's right away super excited to see her. And she's kind of hesitant. She's not sure. And then, you want to get a coffee? Sure. And they start walking. And it's like, where the fuck is this coffee house? Because they're walking forever. Like, where? It reminded me of the Dave Chappelle line, where he's the limo driver's like, I got to make a stop real quick. And he's like, gun store, liquor store, gun store. Where the fuck are you taking me?
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like, it just seemed like a long walk to get a coffee.
Yeah.
Maybe on purpose. I don't know.
Probably. Yeah.
But it's Paris. Don't they have a fucking, cafe on every corner? I mean, it's, I don't know. I've never been to Paris, so what do I know?
They needed a little time to talk before they got to the coffee
I
shop.
guess so. My biggest problem with this movie, honestly, was a technical thing, and it was the lighting. I really struggled with, because a lot of times it's just like, why is he bathed in this golden hue? And then suddenly and then we cut to her, they're on the boat in the sun together. He's bathed in this golden hue. And then we cut to her and she's in a shadow. And I'm like, it's just kind of inconsistent. And I think probably because he shot it quick and he didn't have the money for retakes and a lot of other things. But like, if you watch the cafe scene, that first cafe scene, it's kind of almost too bright. Like they're throwing some extra light into the cafe to brighten it up a bit, and it's just either that or maybe it's a little overexposed. One of the two.
I think you're onto something there, because the first movie's like all mostly at night,
right?
So this one we're getting more of that overly bright into the sunset dynamic. But yeah, you're right.
And it feels like he's trying.
Bizarre.
Yeah, like he's trying to create this Parisian golden sun, like Paris, the
whole movie's magic hour.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a great way to put it. Maybe he's trying to capture magic hour, 5-6 o'clock, that great, that time that filmmakers love to shoot it, because it's supposed to, everything's supposed to look so great. But I just found that was my biggest problem with the movie, where I was just like, this lighting, and I'm usually not much of a, where's that lighting coming from type of guy. That's really not my thing. It has to really stand out for me to really call it. Cause I'm the type of, guy that's like, hey, I'll just light the room. Like, let's just light the room. And, I don't need a lot of dramatic lighting or whatever. So anyway, that was a sticking point for me. She says at one point, you thought I looked fat. You wrote a book about a young fat French girl. And I was just like, and then she's like, well, you kind of painted me a little neurotic. And I'm like, girl, you're fucking neurotic. Like, of course he painted you as neurotic.
She's more neurotic in this movie.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Yeah.
The 9 years have done that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember them smoking in the first film?
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of, they're like smoking cigarettes through the whole thing. I think you even mentioned it, like, how you got money for cigarettes or something when he ran out of money, or...
Yeah, okay.
I'm like, that's when they ran out of cigarettes. We were trying to analyze the exact moment.
Yeah.
And this is kind of the end of the golden age of smoking in movies, too.
True.
Yeah. So, right around there.
They do smoke in this one. This movie strikes me as, and this is not a problem point like the lighting, but it's sort of this thing where, and I think it's probably going to happen with the other one, where it's trying to be a little deep, right? Like, it's trying to be deep. They're talking about sort of deeper things, relationships, and also personal deep things, but it just kind of comes off a little surface deep. Not as deep.
I think this is the lightest of the three.
Yeah.
I feel like this is mostly about, we've met again, and boom, this quick hour.
Yeah.
It doesn't really go a whole lot deeper than that. It like you said, it's like it tries to, but that gets saved for the next one.
It's more about will they or won't they?
Yeah.
it's more about like, will they or won't they? Like, he's in a marriage. Is he going to leave his wife? She's, is she going to open herself up to him and admit that that's what she wants? Cause that's what she's kind of struggling with.
Yeah. She almost runs out of the car at one point.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, she tells him that she's kind of, that night really kind of fucked her up with men for a while, like it was, and admits it's because it's interesting because in the beginning of the movie, this part's that I liked. Beginning of the movie, she's like, I don't even remember, did we have sex? And then later on, she's like, we had sex twice, you idiot. Like I would forget that. Like I would forget how the stars looked and how the sky looked and how that, all that type of stuff. And it's like, yeah, he messed her up really badly. It maybe in a good way. I don't know, but.
And just like the first one, this is another Mo Henry movie.
Yep. Good for that. Good like that. We love us some Mo Henry. She worked on so many films. I did notice there was one point where they were a lot of nice scenery in this movie. Again, he picked some very pretty places to shoot, but it's when they're going to that garden, that big garden in the first third of the movie, and there's a guy sitting on a bench and he's got a red shirt on. He's bent over tying a shoe, and the camera's following the two of them as they're walking past him. And then they cut to they 180 to cut to looking at Ethan and her. And it takes like 3 or 4 seconds for this guy to appear in the frame and walk by. And it's like, timing's way off. Like, cause he had already stood up and began to approach the camera. Like I kept waiting for him to appear and walk on. And it was like, beat. Oh, there he is. And it was just, to me, it was just one of those really small things. But he did a lot of fun things with the film. Again, it's really not much different than the first one. It's different subject matter, maybe different character growth and characters in different parts of their lives, but it's the same film. That's why I call it, Walk and Talk and then Walk and Talk 2, because they're essentially the same in that respect.
But you're right. You're totally right. And I think it reflects in the early speech at the bookstore where he's talking about time and everything's happening at the same time at once, the same events, and these three movies kind of all mirror each other in different respects of different versions of the same incident in a way. It's also odd because this is like a sequel that nobody expected or I think even asked for, but they just had an idea. And then it turned into a second movie. And then 9 years after that, you get a third. So another strangely accidental trilogy, like our movies streaming now on Hoopla.
That's a good point. I like that they're 9 years apart. I think it's a technical achievement. That's one of the interesting things about this is the technical achievement episode, kind of.
It totally is.
1917 is a massive technical achievement. We'll get to that, but so is this in the fact that he did that. He's done this kind of messing with time thing in the characters and actors twice now. He did that one with the kid that grows up, and then he's done this one.
Oh yeah. He kind of perfects everything here in Boyhood, I think. And it's funny because he shot before midnight while they were shooting Boyhood during that stretch of time. So he likes to play with time in his movies. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And I haven't seen a lot of people. It's that's what I'm talking about, technical achievement, because haven't seen a lot of people do it that way. There are a few here and there, but it's anyway, it's interesting. Let me check my notes here. I love how she takes offense at being ascribed as neurotic in the book and then spends the rest of the movie acting more and more neurotic. That's just fucking great. I appreciate the film's brevity. Like I think it's good. It didn't drag anything out. It didn't need to. Sometimes you'd make an 80, 85 minute movie and that's just how it is.
Yeah.
And there's, if there's no need to pad it. And I think, like you said, he's trying to do it in real time. Here, you've got your hour. Bookstore 20 minutes, then your hour, 5 minutes of credits, we're out of here. So that's kind of cool. She's got a really nice singing voice.
She has several songs in the movie, even on the end credits, I noticed.
Yeah, she's got a decent singing voice. I was surprised. I mean, it's not, she's not going to, be playing stadiums or anything, but she's got a very kind of a lovely voice. it's it's kind of another vague ending. You know, because he never really answers the will they or won't they. You know he's going to miss the flight probably. But other than that, you don't know if he's staying, if he's going to leave his wife, if, you know, is he going to bring the kid over to Europe? What the hell's going to happen?
Yeah. What is the big question mark? Yeah.
Yeah. And the film doesn't know how to end. Like it just kind of keeps going for a little while. And then it's like, okay, done. And like Roy Scheider in Sorcerer, it comes out of the black with the dynamite, hands it off, but it keeps walking for a while and then it collapses.
Yep. They were following it to see where it takes them, the story. Did you ever see Waking Life?
I don't think I did.
Cartoon type experiment that Linklater did way before Scanner Darkly.
No,
it's
that's why I've heard of that. It's tied to Scanner Darkly. Okay.
Yeah, it's like multiple stories, I think. And if I remember, I'm probably remembering wrong. Tell us in the comments. But at one point, Jesse and Celine have a small couple-minute story in the movie. It doesn't have anything to do with anything.
Really?
But they just kind of how Linklater's linking his various worlds together.
Creating his little worlds together, his little Castle Rock.
Pretty much, yeah.
My favorite line in the film is, there are so many things I want to do, but I end up not doing much. And sister, that resonates with me. I mean, that's a universal truth. And that resonates with me as an artist very, very much. Where I was just like, oh, I shouldn't even be watching this movie. I should be writing a script right now. But that's my line from the movie that I like. Yeah. There are so many things I want to do, but I end up not doing much.
Because they're a little bit older now. They're in their 30s. They're not in the 20s where they've had the whole world in front of them.
Yeah.
Just like the movie's kind of short, my comments about it were kind of short as well. I don't have a whole lot to say other than I pretty much enjoy it. You know, I give it a 3.5, I think. It's the technical achievement episode, you know, but this one's it's interesting on its own. If you had never seen the first movie, you might be able to. I wonder what that would be like just watching this, but then it leads us to the Midnight, which is 9 years.
It gives you enough. It does give you enough backstory, I think, in the beginning that you understand that this girl is probably from the story, and then they start to kind of fill that out. I think you could watch it. But I think you'd be missing a bit not having seen the first one.
Does it change? I mean, it's probably not going to change how you feel about the first movie, but does it make you look at the first movie any differently, having known the events of...
No, not really. I don't think. I think...
Does it enrich anything? Or
I think like I said, if I had caught the middle movie and not seen the first one, I would have been like, oh, well, I'm going to go ahead and watch the first one too. You know, because I want to see what the hell happened here that they're so into each other, that type of thing. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't make me think differently about the first one. As far as like, out of the two of them, I would watch this one mainly because of its brevity. 2, because there's some sort of story and backstory that they're talking about and dealing with.
That's whereas the first right now too.
The first one of them is so this weird, like, I don't know, like two puppies panting at each other, trying to play with each other or something.
They're so young in
I don't want to fucking watch that for an hour and 45 minutes.
And yet, like in this one, I like where she sings the song and he's like, you just swap out somebody's name every time, just like his cynical remark about the poem and on the first night. Yeah, that kind of shit.
Yeah. It's good. I mean, I think the writing's a bit sharper in this one too. The first one, it was like they were in love with these actors were in love with the sound of their own voices. Linklater's in love with the idea of putting all these words in their mouths and kind of having the dialogue ramble here and there and just go freeform and do what it wants to, which made for a very boring picture, in my opinion. It just didn't work for me. This one,
they were also very young in their careers too. Yeah.
I would give this a 2.5.
All right, so which is up from the 1.5.
From the 1.5, that's a pretty big jump. Yeah, well, hey, it's not something I would watch again.
Yeah,
it's not something I would watch again, but I think it was pretty decently made. That lighting drove me crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it was definitely better than the first one.
Oh, cool. So our second movie today,
which brings us to
is another technical achievement.
Yeah.
1917.
19...
More of an experiment than a typical narrative feature, but what is 1917? For those not in the know.
All right, 1917. It's directed by Sam Mendes and written by Sam Mendes and Christy Wilson Cairns. Stars Dean Charles Chapman, George McKay, Daniel Mays. Here's your log line. April 6, 1917. As an infantry battalion assembles to wage war deep in enemy territory, 2 soldiers are assigned to race against time and deliver a message that will stop 1,600 men from walking straight into a deadly trap.
Now, speaking of achievements, I mean, I think I did all right my first time through. How well did you do?
1917?
Yeah, I'm going to paraphrase a Letterboxd review here. I got about 57% on my achievement list unlocked my first playthrough of 1917. I unlocked Welcome to the Front. You received orders from the general. Mind the craters. You crossed no man's land unscathed. All rats. You set off a trap and destroyed the German bunker.
No, that's not an achievement. That's not a good thing.
Well, that's why I only got 57%. You see. Let's see. Hitchhikers. I chose to ride with the battalion. Milkmaid. I had food for the French woman's baby. Personal effects. I gave Blake's brother closure. And there were some other things that were locked that if I played through 1917 again, I think I might be able to achieve spelunking. You left the German bunker without setting off any traps. He's the enemy. You left the German pilot in his plane. Like Ghost, you escaped without being spotted. Punctual, you reached the 2nd Battalion before the attack began. Brothers in arms, you and Blake delivered the message together. Let the whistle blow. You failed to convince Colonel Mackenzie and called off the attack yourself. Reunited, Blake and his brother both survived to the end. In Groundhog Day, you completed the game on New Game. I enjoyed this film, but this was a video game, I thought, because of its structure.
I mean, it's straightforward. According to Mendez, it's not a true story, but it's got some factualness to it.
I know.
I mean, you could see that there were writing elements that kind of make it like that, but I think that is a fucking product of video games turning themselves basically into fucking movies than it is movies trying to emulate video games.
Oh, I don't think they did it on purpose, but I think the precision of the movie resulted.
I see what you're saying completely.
The movie's like a giant mouse trap. It's kind of the reason I didn't like Skyfall, which we'll get into that maybe one day. Maybe I just don't like Sam Mendes very much.
Maybe not. Maybe you don't like the way he structures his films. Yeah.
It felt to me like every time they tried to hide the cut, it was painfully obvious, and it felt like a bunch of cut scene video games together. Like if they went back in and started talking to those people again, they would only say one of 2 responses that they had. And then you go back out. I felt like if they had just left the whole movie continual shots in the trenches, but everything else be broken up, they wouldn't have been tied to this, you have to get to something exactly happening, so then we can switch to the next series of shots where dude suddenly has all his hit points back. He should be dead like 10 times over, but he becomes Lara Croft by the end, falling down the waterfalls and everything. And he's so clean and his hair is so perfect. Shouldn't you like be dirty and disgusting looking and like almost dead? And it just felt like it hit every tired cliche.
Did we watch the same movie? That's weird because I felt he was dirty. I mean, Jesus Christ, he's covered in white shit.
Yeah,
when that bob goes off,
and his hair's perfect.
And he's got all his face off.
Yeah.
And he's, then he's moving around. He's got his friend's blood all over him.
Yeah,
Then he's
and
later on,
his friend dies. Then the soldiers show
clothes
up.
are
Like
torn.
a video game would, Yeah, I went into this thinking this is supposed to be amazing. I was quite underwhelmed. I still liked it. It's a technical achievement. I didn't hate the movie, but there was just so much of it that just, I'm like, and it kept doing it over and over again, where I'm like, oh, we're switching to another scene. Oh, he's got his hit points back. He's running this way. He's running this way. Now he's almost dead again. Oh, but you're here. Oh, shit, I better wake up and go over here. Oh, and now it's Benedict Cumberbatch. And if I went back out and went back in, he would say, thank you, boy. Now fuck off. And you walk back out and you walk back in. He'd say the same thing again. And you go back and the guy in the front would be like, but I appreciate what you did because they're non-player characters. That's what it felt like to me. It really, really did. And I was happy to see that I'm not alone in the world based on that one review I just read to you and a lot of people on Letterboxd. It's a polarizing film. Half the people think it's amazing. Half the people think it's like watching somebody play Assassin's Creed for 2 hours.
I just don't see that. I mean, I don't see that.
Birdman. I thought Birdman did it better.
I think they both did it very well. I mean, I think they both did it very well. It's hard to see those edits. Sometimes they're obvious.
Oh, I thought every single one was painful
for a very good reason. I mean, if you're because it's a bunch of oneers. You're a filmmaker, so right away you're looking for the point. You're looking for the thing. Going, there it is. I saw it. There it is. I saw it. I did it. I did it during Birdman. It's a byproduct of being a filmmaker. But I don't think that takes away from the fact that they made it work very well. I mean, there's stuff in that film. There's a lot of technical shit that they had to do in that film that was pretty stunning.
It's so technical, and it is stunning, but there was nothing humanity left in it for me because it was just a technical exercise to where I'm like, oh shit. Like I got so much more out of like Sisu and things like that, where it was like, ooh, I feel something here, even though it's completely cartoony and this is supposed to be more realistic, but I'm not feeling anything because they're so adhered to their gimmick throughout the whole thing. I mean, it's a better movie than like Jerry, for instance, but it did make me think of things like Hardcore Harry. Is that what it's called? Like a first-person shooter movie as well. And then there's also this recent horror movie called In a Violent Nature, where the whole movie is from the point of view of the killer. I've never seen that either, but these movies all get polarizing reviews. Some people love them, and some people are like, "What the fuck?" And I'm somewhere in the middle.
This isn't a POV movie.
Footage to me,
I mean, this isn't a POV movie. It's definitely the perspective, like you feel like you're following these two guys for sure.
Third person,
but it's not first person. I mean, we're not watching through the hero's eyes. But I feel I hear what you're saying. I'm not trying to argue your point, or I guess I am, but I'm not trying to change your mind, but I'm just kind of fucking shocking.
It's just rock climbing. You're just walking and walking. I'm thinking, is this what people that don't like Lord of the Rings movies feel that they're like? It's like, oh shit. Because there's parts where they're just walking for minutes at a time and not saying anything.
Sure. I mean, well, fuck. I mean, that's what Before Sunrise, Before Midnight are.
Well, that's why it's so interesting
that we have these walking, and I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about?
How weird that we have both of them in the same night, right?
Oh, it's insane.
But remember, I didn't say I disliked this movie. I'm not even giving it a bad review. I just was like dumbfounded. It just dumbfounded.
I'm dumbfounded. I'm at a loss for words.
One of the reasons I don't like Skyfall is, and it's the same crew made that movie, right? It's another
same DOP, same director, yeah, for sure.
And what happens in that movie, one of the things I didn't like the most about it is, not to go off on Skyfall too much, I'll try to be quick about it, but Benicio del Toro's character gets captured, and this whole mousetrap set of things have to happen exactly precise for the prison wall to lift up for him to walk out. And I feel like that's kind of Mendez's thing. He loves this Rube Goldberg device set up to where, rat hits tripwire, boom, take that rat out the next time you play through the game. And next time you play through the game, put that German out of his misery, right? Because then your buddy doesn't get stabbed. But I felt like it was the first time through, and I didn't know those skills yet.
That's interesting. I think it lays bare the cost of war pretty early. It's mud and death and nothing but.
Oh, the trench stuff is amazing. The
I
trench
think,
stuff is fucking astounding because it just goes and it goes and it goes, and it's like, what a huge fucking set they had to build for that. That's amazing.
Watching his buddy die like that, this whole stabbing, I thought was pretty rough.
It's rough, but it still ends up in the "tell her I love her" tropes. So
people die in very stupid ways in war, and that's I think it illustrates that. And
I was amazed that it got a screenplay nod. It was nominated for best screenplay. That one really surprised me because I didn't think there was much of a story there.
I think I do. See, I think they're. I mean, it reveals itself. You find out these two. It's like in the beginning where he's like, "Hey, pick a guy and go report in," and he picks his buddy. And then later on, he's fucking, the rat tripwire thing happens. He saves his buddy. His buddy's like, "Why the fuck did you pick me?" He's like, "I didn't know it was going to be this. I thought we were going to go get some food or something, man." Like, you start to realize these guys have been together for a while.
Oh, well, he's going to be the one that's going to make it, and his buddy's going to die here in the next 15 minutes, and bam, it happens.
Well, I mean, you look at that baby face fucker, and he's going to die. I mean, that's pretty obvious. I mean, it
telegraphs a lot. But those things have to happen for the mousetrap to go for him to get there just at the time. But he even doesn't get there at time. The first plane had gone off.
Yeah, the first wave still goes. That's the thing.
He got to save some of them. Yeah. You know what my favorite part of the movie is when he just gets up and walks on the battlefield at the end, where he's just like, "Fuck it, I'm going over there."
Oh yeah, and the whole that's that big crane shot. That's that big.
And they're like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "Fuck you." Did they say fuck that much back then?
Huh?
Did they say fuck that much back then?
I have no idea.
I was like, whoa, I'm not used to, World War I movie where people are saying fuck constantly, but they might very well have been. But I did like that part where he's just like, you know what? No, fuck this. I'm just going to go over there and deliver that damn message. That's what I came here to do,
One of my notes about the movie is that each of the little set pieces is absolutely unique and has its own kind of brilliant little twist, right? And I think it's like it's each is its own event and obstacle for the story and the hero to move forward. And I think that's what's giving you that video game feel. Yeah. Right.
And it even kind of felt like I saw like the character walk up and like it even felt like I was watching a video game. Like the cuts when they would go, I'm like, you just went to the trench inside this tent, but it's like it totally does not feel like it's the inside of the tent. It feels like we're just doing a little cutscene over here. Yeah.
Interesting. I think the scene with the fire and the flares is my favorite. His face when it lights up and goes dark and the fear while he's running is pretty breathless. I also like I like where he walks up and he's just standing in front of that roaring fire. He's just kind of looking at it. It's really, there's some breathtaking scenes and shots in that. The lighting's impeccable because it's Deakins. We actually have glows on actors and we know why. We know where the light's coming from, which is pretty nice.
Much like Skyfall, too pretty once again. I didn't like either. I thought they looked too nice for what they want. I want it to look like Sorcerer. I want this movie to look like Sorcerer.
I like how we don't often see what they're looking at until we need to see it. Like these guys are constantly looking at things, and the camera's revealing what they're looking to, which is kind of fun. My favorite line in the movie is "Hope is a dangerous thing," I enjoy this movie quite a bit. I think it's a really good film. I figured you would enjoy it.
I mean, it's a technical achievement, and I didn't dislike it, but there was, enough in it where I was just like, what the hell is going on? And then I was just like, oh boy, I hope I'm not alone. And then I looked and I was like, oh, okay, I'm not the only person who thought this. And other people, like the thing I quoted, thought it a lot more harshly. I actually enjoyed the film, but I won't be watching it again. It was kind of infuriating to me in a way when it's video game where it almost felt disrespectful to the source material, that it's like, well, they're all dead now, so we can just make it in a video game. And then to see that he was writing it about stories that he heard from his family, where I was just like, maybe this just isn't for me because I can't connect with it.
I don't know. I mean, I don't. There's a lot. I think there's a lot to connect with. I don't. I'm kind of stunned. You've got two friends in the front lines. One loses the other. It's the whole brother thing, trying to save their buddy. I don't know. That's interesting. And I don't see this video game thing. Again, I see what you're saying with Mousetrap. Again, obstacles and set pieces that he's got. But I think the set pieces themselves are interesting enough, and that you move in between them pretty well, that it all works. For me, it's probably one of my top 5 war movies. If you were going to ask me for top five war movies to watch, this would be this and Saving Private Ryan would be right fucking there.
Mm-hmm. I like Private Ryan a lot more. Yeah. A lot.
Oh yeah. More. I mean, I like Private Ryan too. I think this
and
is.
Then to find out this is an Amblin
high up there with
production.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, well, no wonder it had that kind of glow to it in parts. Or it seemed like they were trying to go for that a little.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah, the funny thing is that apparently that there's a lot more edits than we think there are in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
So the shortest unbroken shot is 39 seconds long. The longest is 8.5 minutes. And what the editor and Sam said was like, there's a lot more edits than you think there are. They're just kind of invisible.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah,
that's kind of so. I mean, I don't think it's trying to. I think it looks like it's trying to do Birdman because of the way it's put together.
Which also was a one Best Picture, right? Didn't it?
Yeah, I think it did. It was either nominated or it won. Birdman's great. We may have it on the show. It's an interesting technical achievement too. But moreover, just the scope of this fucking thing. That shot where, like you said, where he runs up out of the trench and all the soldiers start running with him is
that
amazing.
Was good.
I can't imagine even.
That's what the whole movie's for.
Putting that shot together, like trying to keep all those people in line. You know how much just orchestration it must take just to be like, all right, everybody run. It's got to be brutal.
And yet there's a lot of CG going on in some of these shots too. So it'll be interesting to see what this movie looks like in 20 years if the CG and stuff holds up, or if we're looking at it like The Faculty or something where we're like, ooh, that 1997 CGI.
I don't think so. I think because the Faculty CGI, the reason that it kind of has problems is for the most part because the big bug stuff.
Yeah.
Right? Like the other stuff is not so bad, the veiny, weird stuff like that. But
the worst this one has is some rubbery people flapping around a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. I think for the most part, they hit any CG in the background pretty good. Yeah, exactly. I don't think it's going to suffer from that. I could be wrong, but I don't think it'll suffer from that.
But remember, I do not dislike this movie. It was just the aspect of it that made me feel like I was watching somebody play a video game that I wasn't even that into. Yeah,
you start saying video game, I was like, what the fuck is he talking about? I don't see that at all. It's weird. I can see where you're coming from again with the set pieces and stuff, but to me, it doesn't come across like that at all. I've played Battlefield. I've played most of those, and it seems a little bit different in my opinion.
I'm glad he retrieved the milk because he was going to need that later.
Well, and to be fair, if you found, to me, the first thing I thought of when I saw a pail of milk laying there is like, where's the person who just milked this fucking cow? Right?
Was it the soldiers that show up after? Is that who did
I guess.
I don't think they ever really tell us, do they?
I don't know. Maybe it was the Germans that evacuated. I don't know. But
yeah,
after that, your second thought is going to be, I'm gonna drink that milk because you're a soldier and
you're not getting points.
Yeah. Well,
I'd like to see a version of the movie with like little energy meters on the screen and shit. How much further you are to your goal and shit.
That's just disrespectful.
Well, I'm not the one who made the film, though. I just had to sit through it.
I know. But like I said, I don't get this video game thing, but I hear you.
I should have been taking more specific notes on it, but yeah, it just felt like he'd be totally worn out, beat in the back of the head, or shot at again, and then he'd end up in a new location, and a little cutscene would start, and then somewhere in the middle of it, he'd regain his hit points so he could go back into the next chunk, which he would usually end up being beat down again to go to the next scene and repeat till you get to the end, kind of. You know, it's exciting in ways to watch, but in other ways, I'm just like, oh, you are so stuck on this gimmick. If only you had broke up and done some coverage. But I guess maybe I'm just American and I love my coverage too much. You know, I don't know.
I mean, how is coverage going to save anything that you're really?
Some of the long shots didn't do it for me. I feel like maybe if you could see the people's faces and they're acting a little more, it felt like more into the thing and just kind of felt like a found footage thing. Like remember, I was mean on Sicario too, right? Because I felt like we went into Blair Witch.
You don't like Deakins. That's your problem. You got a fucking problem with Deakins.
See, when I love him. But when he's not hitting right for me, I'm just like, oh, it just doesn't do it for me. But don't matter. I'm one person. They got a bunch of people that love this shit. So they don't need me and my weird taste. Sean Baker liked it on Letterboxd here, so I'm pretty sure that's the real Sean Baker.
Well, I don't know. I think it's pretty good. Like I said, top three war movies for me, from my perspective. And to each its own. That's why we do this, so that we can find out all this weird shit that we do and don't like. So
now here's a question: is this easier to make or harder to make, or is it not possible to answer that question? Because what you're doing is, since you're not getting coverage, you're essentially making the master edit of the movie, right? Because you're never going to go back and cut things into it. But that probably is just as tricky as getting all the shots and then combining them into a scene, right? Because you're having to make sure that it matches. And so that was one of the things what walked away from it the most, was the technical aspects of it and how well,
that's why we're talking about technical achievement. Yeah. I think that's probably why it got, screenplay, I can maybe, you see.
But I mean, you could argue visually it's telling the story.
Visually it's doing just fine, I think. I don't know. I think just from a filmmaking standpoint, I think it would probably be harder to try, because not only do you have to do
you got to get it all in one over and over again, right? Somebody fucks up.
You got to kind of get the timing. You got to get the timing just right. Everything's got to hit just right.
And some of the smaller ones might be easy to catch, but some of the bigger ones are tricky, right?
Yeah, early on, it's obvious as they're walking, they're doing those long walks through the trenches, that a lot of the soldiers are purposely not looking at them and looking away. It's pretty obvious,
Still not easy, though.
Right. It's still not easy. And so, I mean,
it's like the whole movie is the opening shot of La La Land in a way, but just not as
during the filming,
intense.
It's a lot of shit that you don't see. So for instance, they had to go, through the trenches, and then they go into an officer's tent, like one of those, dug in with the sandbags and shit. And
that's where it felt like they couldn't connect to me. But I understand how
couldn't get the camera in there. It wouldn't fit or something. And so I read that they had to raise the roof. They had to put the roof on these weird automatic jacks, so that once they got to that point, the roof would sort of raise out of view of the camera, and they could actually go down into that area to shoot, which I thought was kind of an interesting, that's fucking interesting. What an interesting fix. Oh yeah, we'll just raise the roof 12 or whatever the fuck they did. It was interesting.
I wonder what they think looking back at it, because everybody's always like, oh, I could have done this or that. And I'm sure they probably look at it and go, fuck, we had to compromise this and this, and we don't even notice it,
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
Now, Sam Mendes is a bizarre director, right? He seems like he's become the ultimate director for hire over the last few years. I always liked American Beauty. Talk about separate the art from the artist. Can you watch that like Swimming with Sharks now? I don't know. But then Road to Perdition, I was always kind of lukewarm on. This guy made Jarhead.
Yeah,
I didn't really care much for that one. It was okay. I didn't dislike it, but it didn't, blow me out of the water.
For me, one of the better comic book adaptions I'd seen.
And not to get too gossipy or anything, but after he got divorced from Kate Winslet, he's suddenly doing things like James Bond movies, and I'm thinking somebody's paying some bills. But then he proceeded to make more just bizarre stuff. This is definitely a big swing. It's not based on IP necessarily. It's not even really a biopic. I mean, you kind of semi throw it in the based on a true story, but we know how that can be sometimes. You take a lot of liberties with that, but they took a big swing. The movie's almost 6 years old. We're talking about it. I don't know who else is still talking about it, but we're talking about it this week. I'm glad I watched it. It's like you said, the point of the podcast, I'm getting to see all these movies I never saw that were acclaimed,
Mendes is not really my favorite director. I did enjoy both of his James Bond films.
What was the other one he did? He did
Skyfall and Spectre.
He did Spectre as well. Interesting, because Spectre is so different than Skyfall.
American Beauty, I liked it when it came out. It got a lot of Oscar love. But I think it's getting a lot of unneeded hate now. Like I read a lot of reviews now that really hate watch it. And I'm like, you guys, maybe it's one of those films where you kind of had to be in the zeitgeist when it came out to really get it or whatever. But I don't see where all the hate's coming from on that. But anyway.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that too. I've always liked that movie.
I think he's got some technical achievements later, like Skyfall in particular, Spectre, 1917. He did some really good shit on those, like technically, to pull that stuff off. I haven't really seen everything he's made, but
I haven't either. I don't think. I've seen a bunch of it though.
Yeah,
but it seems like he came on strong, and then he's just proceeded to kind of bizarre workman like.
No, he hasn't really done much. He hasn't really done much since Empire of Light, and I guess 1917 was his last really big swing, and that was 2019. So,
oh yeah, and then I think he did another movie with Deakins that came out shortly after the pandemic, right?
Layman Trilogy or something.
Or am I off on that?
Not sure.
Maybe it was Nolan. I can't remember, but I think it was more of a smaller personal film.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. It won, let's see. It was nominated for Best Motion Picture, nominated for Best Direction, nominated for Best Screenplay, won Best Achievement in Cinematography, which I think it richly deserved.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah.
Best Achievement in Makeup and Hairstyling Oscar, Best Achievement in Production Design Oscar. I think that's a good call. And
you
then
remind
Best
me
Achievement
of
in Music.
Like the makeup artist Christopher Nelson, he makes a lot of movies that I don't really like, but I love the makeup effects, right? And so it's kind of like, yeah, Deakins is great, but he's not necessarily every movie he makes is one that I like, but yet I still like what he did in it, kind of.
Right. I hear you. It looks like it actually won 3 Oscars. Best Achievement in Visual Effects and Best Achievement in Sound Mixing.
Oh yeah, it was that Empire of Light, like you mentioned. That was the movie I was trying to think of, yeah.
Gotcha.
Which is also on Prime Video with our movies.
On Hoopla.
Oh, Revolutionary Road. That was another one of his where I was like,
not for me. What did you give this one? 2.5, 2, 1, 1.5?
I give it 3.5 because it's an
Really?
amazing technical achievement. There's just, I can't go any higher than that because of my personal, but I'm not going to say it's bad. That would be stupid, but it's just, there's just parts and I'm like, oh my God, this is so bizarre to me. The framework of it and I understand what they got locked into and they couldn't get out of it. That's why I was like, well, in my fucking version, yeah, like that's going to be any good. We just kept it to the trenches that were continual shots. And then when you're out on the battlefield, you could have broke it up a little bit more so you didn't feel tied into moments had to precisely happen at unreal convenient times to set up the next part. So it was like every 5 or 6 minutes kind of roughly throwing me out a little bit before throwing me back in. So in that way, kind of like Sorcerer in a way. But 3.5, I liked it more than Sicario because nobody went into a bank at any point and got their faces videotaped.
Jesus.
Why are you going in the bank? You should know not to go in the bank. They're going to come looking for you.
Oh my God, it's hilarious. Well, I'm surprised. It sounded like I figured it would be a lower score because it sounded like you really had problems with it. But I hear what you're saying. It is technical achievement. It's a well-made movie. I think I'm probably going to go just a little bit higher than that and say 4.
4.
I do agree with you that there's it probably could be a little more storytelling. There could probably be a little more character development. I do feel like there's some there, and I do feel like it serves the story. But I could do some more.
It was like my opening statement.
I don't think it's
more of a
perfect film.
Exactly. But my opening statement, more of an experiment than a typical narrative feature. I almost felt like I was watching an art house movie because it's like, we got this gimmick and this is how we're going to do it. And because we have to do it this way, the story demands to be told this way, because otherwise none of this is going to work. This house of cards is going to crumble. So you have to.
It's so weird because this has been made by Mendez, and then Nolan did Dunkirk.
One reviewer called this movie Unkirk. Ouch,
dude. I think. I mean, and that's what bringing that up. So I bring Dunkirk up
I've
for
never
a
seen
specific
Dunkirk,
reason because I feel like we're going to have to bring it up on the show eventually.
Okay.
But to me, a lot of the people when I've seen these reviews, and I've seen some of these reviews you're talking about with 97 online, these people tend to think Dunkirk is a good movie. I don't think Dunkirk is a very good movie. So it's weird. Maybe there's some sort of corollary between not liking Dunkirk and liking 1917.
Well, I like Sisu.
That was great. I enjoyed that.
I know it's completely ridiculous, but that was fun.
It was a blast. Not a lot of character development, but you don't really need it.
He was on his mission.
Mm-hmm.
They could have done Sisu as a continual shot, and that would have felt video game like to me. Maybe the continual shot thing just feels like the third person.
Well, I think that's what's killing it for you is continual shot
that
thing.
Have made those games probably worked on the movie.
Yeah, and then there's also the like we talked about the from obstacle to obstacle, overcome, regroup, go again, overcome, regroup, go again.
Mm-hmm. Which is true to War, I'm sure, but
at one point he's shot in the head, and he's by the time he shows up to that girl, he's bleeding and shit. She has to kind of bandage him, and I feel like they carried that stuff through. But it's not working for you. It's not working for you.
And then he gets out and
just
running through, and everything's on fire, and I'm like, are there usually people on his side running through here? Because they're out there looking for people. I'm thinking this looks like a very dangerous place for anybody to be. So, is there anybody else on his side running through line? But is there anybody else on his side running through there on a regular basis? Well, it's that level right before you throw the ring into Mount Doom, But it made me think about Lord of the Rings a lot, because which war did the author of that fight in, Tolkien?
I think World War I.
And so there's a lot of walking from place to achieve the goal in that. And he based a lot of that on his experiences in war. So maybe World War I was a lot more walking than we realize.
Well, I think the mechanized, like the idea of mechanized troop transport was probably not as much because, if you look at those trucks that they were riding in, they were pretty, 1917. Yeah.
Nope, this is where I get off. Nope. Your mission is to go that way. If I go with you, I'm not going to, I'll end up I can't do a side quest right now, guys. I got to go do the main thing, I would like to do another playthrough. I feel like there's all sorts of little things along the way that I didn't get to explore and shit. I'm almost surprised they didn't make a game out of it, to tell you the truth. It's so crass with the way they make video games a lot of the time.
Well, I think that Battlefield is supposed to kind of emulate that for sure. Battlefield 5 was one, and then the newest, because there's a Battlefield that deals with 1917, or at least deals with World War I.
Interesting. I almost wish that I wasn't motion sick, because then I'd probably, try some of that out, see what it, see how the gameplay was.
Famously, Medal of Honor, I think it's Medal of Honor Allied Alliance, is the one where you storm the beach at Normandy, and it is the first 25 minutes of Private Ryan as a video game.
Crazy.
Which is fantastic. It's insane. It's so, because you literally are like crawling on the beach from one thing to the next, and people are blowing up around you, and then you got to get the claymores together, and it's insane. Bangalores, I guess is what they call it. Anyway, what do you got for me next week?
And then there were 9.
What a stuff list do you refer to this movie as a video game?
It'd be a good one. So next week we'll be back with another Making Pondo. But then when we're back after that, I feel like we set this one up pretty good.
No. What do you got for me?
Yeah, exactly. Oh no, you're right. Your film is Dr. No.
What?
Well, we haven't done any Bond, and we were talking about Bond, and I was already thinking about this one for a while. Let's start at the beginning of a franchise. Doesn't mean we're going to do all 27 Bond films, obviously, but we'll do this one.
Is that the one in Cuba with the
Jamaica?
Jamaica with the witch doctor and all that.
I think the witch doctor one's the Live and Let Die.
Oh, okay.
Which they may be back in Jamaica in that one because that's a Roger Moore, but this is OG Sean Connery.
Okay. I'm going to give you a blind pick. I haven't seen it. But I've heard about it. It's one of these movies that was made and then came out, and then it started to get some traction, and it's getting some theater plays again.
Okay.
Which is kind of interesting for a film that rarely happens.
Didn't you already give me Whiplash?
Nope.
Because that did get some screenings though this year. I noticed, or last year.
Did it?
Yeah, they reissued it for
it's
10 year. Yeah,
10 year. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I wish I'd have caught that. That would have been great.
Movie.
I love that film. So your next film is going to be Dinner in America.
I don't even know if I know that one. I will though next time.
Kyle Gallner from 2020, and again, it was released a while ago, but it's starting to get this weird resurgence.
Pandemic probably didn't help it the first time it came out. Now people can see it. All right, 2 movies that start with the letter D next time on.
There we go.
Talking Pondo.
Dr. No and Dinner to America. Okay. Why not?
Why not? Well, we'll find out next time.
Till then, Marty's going to rewatch 1917 and see if he can get better than 57%.
I want to get 100%, man. Wouldn't it be awesome if I could go all the way to the end with both guys and I stopped the shit myself? I didn't even have to go to the general. And then we don't have the fucking incredibly emotional sequence where I just met you and I'm telling you your brother's dead and here's his personal effects. Fuck. As if you aren't already wrecked enough from just being out in war. Ouch. That was another one of the really heavy scenes, too.
That was rough. Yeah, I agree.
My God.
I agree.
Maybe it's a good thing that I thought it lightened it up for me in parts and made it more palatable, maybe. It would have been too heavy otherwise, maybe.
Well, let's see what these next ones are like. I don't think they'll be anywhere near as heavy.
Yeah.
All right, man. Until next week. Later.
Thanks. Support the show on Buzzsprout for only $3 a month. Give us a 5-star review on Spotify or the platform of your choice. And be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube page.